The right time is now to discuss this new reality that will govern the world for years. I will give you my personal view. We must understand why the rich get richer while the poor remain poor. It seems evident that people are divided into two groups, those who have and those who haven't. It matters not who is president or prime minister, whether we vote for them or not, whether we are rich or not. Even if they don't say it directly, there is a clear divide between those who have and those who don't. This is the case in every country. There are exceptions, of course, but for the most part, the rich are more affluent, and the poor are poorer. In the United States, despite all the talk about equality, and Europe, despite all the talk about meritocracy, the fact is that the wealthy are educated at better schools and have more access to information. Given the above, it is no surprise that the rich tend to be wealthier than the poor. This is the case in almost every country around the world. The world is changing rapidly. Technology is creating huge benefits but also significant challenges. The winners in the modern economy are those who adapt fast enough. But the losers feel like they're being left behind. Criminals are very good at manipulating people, and the poor are particularly vulnerable to manipulation by criminals. The rich are more likely to be exposed to information from their environment. The rich have more access to information and can therefore make better decisions. Islamic terrorists are very good at manipulating people with lies and half-truths. They convince them that they are the victims when they are the aggressors. This makes a lot of sense since most Muslims live in countries dominated by Christians and Jews. One way to fight this is through education, often neglected in Muslim societies. Another is to counter lies with truth. Unfortunately, these two approaches are rarely practical. This is why education and counter-information campaigns are so important. For example, in the recent terrorist attack on Manchester, a young man named Salman Abedi drove his car into a crowd of people. He was born in Libya, moving to England when he was 7. He was raised in the United Kingdom and converted to Islam when he was 18. If the media had reported the facts honestly, the attack would have been perceived as an act of terrorism perpetrated by a Muslim. But the media chose to report on the killer's background instead of informing on the motives behind the attack. In other words, the media chose to report on the killer's background, not his motives. It is challenging to change how we think and talk about the world because of this bias in the media, and it's essential to be aware of it. The media has been obsessed with reporting the news instead of the story's context. This means that many people do not know the truth behind the story. They want to be the first ones to break a big story and the first ones to cover breaking news. They report the big stories, usually negative ones, and ignore the context. This is why we need to be aware of the media's bias. When the news is focused on events rather than people, it's easier to find a story that fits your belief. The same thing happens with politics. Most people have an opinion on politics, and it's easy to find a story that supports your argument. Mainstream media is more biased in favor of certain groups, and they can no longer cover every story in detail. Only the most important stories get coverage, so we must be careful about the information we receive. For example, BBC News recently covered the case of a woman sentenced to death in Iran for adultery. The story was about Iranian women being persecuted for infidelity. Many people share this story on social media without checking its validity. By sharing this story, the media created a story about a woman sentenced to death in Iran for having premarital sex. Looking closely at the story, we can see that the account is invalid. The woman in question wasn't convicted to death, and she wasn't convicted of anything. Also, she didn't murder anyone. She was accused of adultery and was sentenced to 200 lashes. But, of course, there's something relatively common in Iran to blame someone for cheating. Most importantly, the story was fabricated by the BBC. The BBC is known for its liberal views and is often accused of bias. The BBC is indeed biased, but it's also true that it's trying to be fair. So I think we must be aware of this bias in the media. I'm not saying that the media is always wrong. It's just that we must be careful about the information we receive. How did the West get here? The Western world used to be united. We believed everyone should have the same rights, but the wokeist agenda movement changed that. Wokeism started in the 1960s and is based on the premise that human beings are neither male nor female. Once you accept this premise, it follows logically that there should be only one legal gender, the genderless. This ideology is gaining popularity, but it's a dangerous one. Unfortunately, we cannot allow wokeism to go unchecked. Many examples of this ideology have already happened. The most obvious example of this ideology is the transgender movement. The end goal of the wokeists is to create a society where there are no differences between men and women. This belief system should be reversed for the benefit of future generations. We must ensure that transgenderism is not the solution. The concept of gender identity is the foundation of wokeism and needs to be rejected. This philosophy is dangerous because it destroys the family structure. It creates a society that is not built on love and mutual respect. People will no longer have children, and the family unit will be destroyed. So how can we achieve this change? The best way to fight this ideology is through education. First, we must teach our kids the difference between real life and fiction. Secondly, we must help them understand that the family is the cornerstone of society. If the family collapses, the entire society will collapse. Lastly, we must take the lead and spread awareness among our communities. Some say religion is one answer to wokeism, but I'm afraid I have to disagree. Religion is a tool that can be used for good or evil. Some religious people believe in wokeism, and some don't. As long as there is a God, it cannot be a tool used by wokeists to destroy society. That's my opinion. There are many things I still don't understand about the universe, such as why do we exist? The meaning of life is very complex and challenging to comprehend. The last time I visited a psychologist, he told me humans were designed to survive. But I don't think that's what humans only need in their lives. I believe humans want to live. I'm a believer in science. Science is the only way to find answers to our questions. Every person wants to stay alive and in good health. In my opinion, life is more than just survival. It's about achieving happiness. Happiness comes from being free, is a fundamental human right, and is very important to each individual. Why does freedom exist? Freedom allows us to express ourselves, even if we're different from others, something wokeists like to deny us. On the other hand, wokeism denies our freedom, which is unacceptable. Without freedom, we cannot choose who we want to spend our lives with. Also, we cannot choose whom we want to marry and have kids with. We need the freedom to decide these things. As a result, I believe that wokeism violates human rights. While wokeism damages our society, it doesn't mean we should abandon science. I'll end this video by stating that scientific research can be used to improve our lives. I firmly believe that science is one of humanity's most outstanding achievements. But at the same time, science can also be used to harm people. Good day to you, and many thanks to all who supported this video. Until next time, peace.